Welcome back to Building Your Worldview episode 5. Today's topic is how to develop political intelligence. When we evaluate someone's abilities, we usually think of IQ or emotional intelligence. But today, I want to talk about a dimension that's often overlooked yet absolutely essential for navigating society: political intelligence. The moment people hear the word politics, many immediately feel uncomfortable. Some think of national policies and government decisions, assuming they have nothing to do with everyday life. Others think of office politics, backstabbing, manipulation, and power games, and dismiss it as something dirty or beneath them. But both of those views miss the bigger picture. Politics is everywhere in human society. It's not just about governments or policies, it's a social phenomenon, a way of understanding how people interact. Today, I want to break this seemingly complicated concept down into something practical, something anyone can understand and immediately apply. So, what exactly is political intelligence? Before we define political intelligence, we first need to define politics itself. And to understand politics, we have to go back to where it all began. In the last episode, we talked about how the agricultural revolution transformed human life. People stopped wandering and began settling down. They started accumulating resources. And over time, they became deeply attached to those resources. Once resources are limited, but human wants are unlimited, competition and conflict become inevitable. But solving every conflict through violence is incredibly inefficient. So, humans gradually developed a more civilized solution. We created rules, authority, and systems of power to distribute resources and maintain order. That's the origin of politics. So in everyday life, whenever people within a group negotiate, compete, cooperate, or interact around power, resources, and shared values in order to make the group function, that's politics. And that's the kind of politics we will be talking about in this video. With that definition, political intelligence becomes much easier to understand. Its ability to read the situation and understand the rules, and use those rules to your advantage whenever possible. In other words, it's a way of thinking. Let's take a company as an example. Promotion opportunities are limited. Since not everyone can be promoted, companies create rules and power structures to decide who moves up while keeping the organization stable. If you want that promotion, your IQ helps you do your job better and deliver stronger results. Your EQ helps you build healthy relationships with coworkers and managers. But your political intelligence helps you avoid one common mistake. That is keeping your head down and assuming hard work alone will solve everything. Instead, it pushes you to ask questions like, who actually has the power to decide promotions? What rules, both written and unwritten, are people following? If I get promoted, who benefits? Who might lose out? What value does this organization truly reward? The better you understand the bigger picture, the better your chances of creating outcomes that work in your favor. The truth is, every organization operates with limited resources. In schools, things like scholarships and high-quality educational opportunities are limited. In families, money, time, attention, and emotional support are all limited. In society, the allocation of these limited resources is happening all the time. Whether you notice it or not, politics is already there. Ignoring it doesn't make it disappear. It simply puts you in a passive position. That's why political intelligence is really the ability to see clearly in a complex social world. So, if political intelligence is so important, how do we develop it? The overall idea is actually quite simple. Applying it is a different story, because every situation is unique. But today, let's focus on the thinking process. Remember what we said earlier? Political intelligence is really about two things: understanding the situation and understanding the rules. So, improving your political intelligence comes down to two key steps. First, learn to read the situation. Second, learn to influence the situation. Let's start with the first one. When you're trying to understand any organization, The most important shift is changing your perspective. Instead of seeing things from eye level, learn to see them from above. Look at the entire system, not just your own position within it. And when you zoom out, there are 5 key elements you should pay attention to: resources, power, people, rules, and values. Let's go through them one by one. Number 1, to truly understand any situation, the first thing you need to pay attention to is resources. Because at the heart of every political situation is the competition for resources. Resources generally fall into 2 categories: tangible resources and intangible resources. Tangible resources are the obvious ones: money, assets, people, equipment, things you can see and measure. Intangible resources include information, knowledge, reputation, influence, relationships, and trust. Once you've identified the resources, the next question is who controls them. That's where power comes in. Power also has 2 forms: hard power and soft power. Hard power is direct control. It's authority to make the final decision. Soft power is different. Its ability to influence decisions, shape opinions, or earn people's trust. For example, imagine you want to borrow money from your friend Alex. Since it's Alex's money, Alex has complete hard power over that resource. But let's say Alex always asks another friend Ben for advice before making important decisions. In that case, Ben also has power, not because he owns the money, but because he influences the decision. That's soft power. Behind every form of power are people. And by people, I don't just mean individuals. I mean every role involved in the system. Sometimes those roles are people, sometimes they are organizations. Generally speaking, these roles fall into 3 groups: decision makers, influencers, and stakeholders. Decision makers directly control how resources are allocated. Influencers don't make the decision themselves, but they can shape public opinion or influence those who do. Stakeholders are the people whose interests are directly affected by the outcome. Now, between the people with power and the actual distribution of resources, there is usually another layer: roles. Roles can also be divided into 2 types: formal roles like policies, contracts, laws, or official procedures, and informal roles, the unwritten customs, habits, and expectations that everyone follows even though nobody officially wrote them down. Okay, so far we've talked about resources, power, people, and rules. Together, those 4 elements already explain a lot. But there's one more piece that's often overlooked, and it's incredibly important: values. In the previous episode, we talked about how the cognitive revolution allowed humans to unite through shared stories. Values are really the story a group tells about itself. Companies have corporate culture, schools have mottos, families have their own unspoken beliefs. Even the smallest groups are held together by a shared idea of what matters. Whatever everyone collectively believes in, that's the group's value system. So, whenever you're analyzing a situation, these are the 5 things to look at: resources, power, people, rules, and values. No matter how complicated a situation looks, if you walk through these 5 elements one by one, you will almost always get a much clearer picture. But understanding the situation isn't enough. The next step is learning how to make the situation work in your favor. That's where influence comes in. So how do we actually influence the situation? Once again, we will go back to those same 5 dimensions and look at where we have room to act. Let's start with resources. This is where you define your objective. If you want to influence the system, your goal has to be specific, measurable, and crystal clear. The clearer your goal is, the easier it becomes to choose the right strategy. For example, if you want a promotion, "I want to get promoted" is too vague. Instead, define exactly which position you want and by when you want to reach it. The more concrete your target is, the more achievable it becomes. And once your resources goal is clear, it also becomes much easier to identify the relevant power, people, rules, and values surrounding it. Everything becomes more focused. Next, let's look at power and people. The key idea here is simple: build alliances. Earlier, we divided people into decision makers, influencers, and stakeholders. Now, ask yourself, what's each group's attitude toward your goal? Do they support you, oppose you, or are they neutral? Building alliances comes down to 3 strategies. Strengthen your supporters, win over the neutral people, and divide your opponents. Strengthening supporters means keeping your core allies engaged and maintaining open communication. Winning over neutral people is usually much more straightforward. Most of the time, it comes down to an exchange of value. Ask yourself, what does this person want? What's their goal? How can I help them achieve it? The ideal outcome is simple. Helping them achieve their goal also helps you achieve yours. Let's go back to the promotion example. Suppose your direct manager is neutral about promoting you. They supervise several employees like you, but only have one promotion slot. There's no obvious reason for them to choose you over everyone else. So instead of asking, how do I convince them? Ask, what are they trying to accomplish? Maybe their biggest goal this year is helping the team hit its annual KPI and earn the department bonus. If that's the case, you could volunteer to take on more responsibility for those key performance targets and consistently deliver strong results. In return, your manager has a much stronger reason to support your promotion. In most situations, value exchange is the most effective strategy. But what if there isn't an obvious exchange to make? Then you can use 2 other approaches. Align with shared values or create a sense of shared challenge. Aligning with shared values means framing your goal in a way that reflects the values the other person already believes in. Creating a shared challenge means identifying an external threat that encourages people to unite. Imagine, once again, that you're aiming for a promotion. Your manager isn't fully on your side, but another department is actively developing someone for the same role. Suddenly, your department risks falling behind. Now, the conversation isn't just about your promotion. It's about protecting the team's competitiveness. The goal is to help neutral people see that supporting you also supports their own interests. Finally, what about people who actively oppose you? Don't waste your energy trying to convert everyone. Instead, look for opportunities to divide the opposition. Ask yourself, do they have internal disagreements? Can those differences reduce their ability to work together? Also, identify the strongest opponent in the group. If one person has significantly more influence than everyone else, try to isolate that influence as much as possible. The less connected they are to the rest of the opposition, the weaker their overall impact becomes. Now, let's move on to rules. Your room to maneuver here comes from 2 options. Use the rules or shape the rules. If you have enough influence, you can try to change the rules so they work more in your favor. But in most cases, we don't have that kind of power. So the smarter strategy is to fully understand the existing rules and make the most of them. Let's stick with the promotion example. Most companies publish promotion criteria every year. Study those criteria carefully. Find every opportunity that earns extra credit. Identify every mistake that costs points. Then focus your energy on the areas where your strengths align best with the rules. Instead of fighting the system, use the system. Finally, we've reached my favorite part, the place where you can often create the biggest advantage. Even if your hard skills aren't exceptional. That's values. This is where framing becomes incredibly powerful. Take the exact same goal and present it through the value system that the other person already believes in. For example, imagine you want your mom to buy you a new phone. Your real reason might be that you want a better camera or smoother gaming. But suppose your family's values emphasize investing money in education and personal growth. In that case, don't frame your request around entertainment. Frame it around learning. Explain that your current phone no longer supports the educational tools you need. Show how the new phone would help you study more effectively or develop useful skills. The goal hasn't changed, only the story has. And sometimes that's what makes all the difference. So let's wrap everything up. Whenever you're trying to understand a political situation, analyze it through 5 lenses. resources, power, people, rules, and values. Then, once you clearly understand the system, start with a well-defined goal. From there, use each of these 5 dimensions to gradually shape the situation in your favor. And that's everything for today's video. I'm Yu. Follow me for more to level up your mind.